The moment you walk into a room, someone is already trying to read you. But what if you could read them first before they even speak? Most people spend their lives reacting, guessing intentions, trusting masks, and getting blindsided by betrayal. But there's a different kind of mind, a strategic mind, a Machiavellian mind, the kind that doesn't wait to be played. It reads the game before the pieces even move. In this video, you're going to learn 14 psychological tactics that Machiavelli himself would use to read anyone instantly, not by asking, but by observing, not by speaking, but by triggering silent confessions hidden in eye contact, envy, hesitation, or weakness. These aren't party tricks. They're tools of power, quiet, sharp, and deeply unsettling to those who wear masks. And once you master them, you won't just understand people. You'll control how they show themselves to you. Because real influence doesn't start with what you say. It starts with what you see. You want to know who someone really is. Don't watch how they treat you. Watch how they treat the one who can't offer them anything. The waiter, the janitor, the intern. The moment someone believes there's no reward or consequence, the mask slips, and what you see in that moment is their real character. Machiavelli warned true power doesn't just corrupt loudly, it whispers through small moments unnoticed by most, but revealing to the trained eye. A person may flatter you when you have status. They may smile when they need your approval. But what about when they believe someone is beneath them? Do they still offer basic respect? Or do they let contempt leak through their tone, their posture, their eyes? That's not just arrogance, it's a preview of how they'll treat you once they believe your value has dropped. We live in a world obsessed with appearances, and because of that, manipulation thrives where attention is focused. But the powerless, the ones often ignored, become the unfiltered mirror of someone's true soul. There is no incentive to impress the barista or the security guard, so when someone speaks down, dismisses or mocks those without influence, they're not being bold. They're revealing the fragility of their own mind and the hierarchy they silently worship. Machiavellian wisdom teaches that the respect someone gives when they think no one important is watching is far more truthful than grand gestures aimed at equals or superiors. If they only treat you well because you offer something, their loyalty is a contract, temporary, transactional, and easily broken. But when someone shows consistency, kindness, or at least decency, even to those who hold no power, you're looking at someone with a rare internal structure, one that isn't driven solely by status or fear. And in a world full of masks, that kind of signal is gold. So read people this way, not through the attention they give you, but the energy they give when they have nothing to gain. Because one day, when you're no longer useful to them, that same energy may be turned against you. And if you didn't notice how they treated the powerless, you'll only realize it once you've become one. Most people fear silence. Not because they love talking, but because they're terrified of what might be seen when the noise stops. Machiavelli understood something. Most still overlook people fill silence to escape themselves. In the absence of sound, masks slip. The performer forgets their script. The manipulator overplays their hand. And the insecure, unable to sit with their own discomfort, begin to reveal far more than they intended. That's why silence isn't emptiness, it's pressure, and pressure exposes truth. When you enter a conversation, don't rush to speak. Don't try to impress. Instead, let your stillness unsettle them. Speak less than they do. Pause longer. Answer slowly. Make your silence louder than their words. At first, they'll try to fill the gap with charm, small talk, or even humor. But as the silence continues, a shift occurs. They begin oversharing. Their voice quickens. Their tone rises, and their need to be validated or to control the dynamic takes over. They reveal fears, insecurities, ambitions, and intentions they didn't mean to show you. Why? Because silence forces them to see themselves through your unblinking gaze. This tactic isn't about dominance through aggression. It's about commanding the room without raising your voice. When you speak sparingly and listen with intensity, you gain an aura of mystery and undefined presence that others project onto. And projection is power. They'll try to guess what you're thinking. They'll wonder if you're judging, approving, or manipulating. But you've said nothing. That's what makes it powerful. Machiavelli never needed to demand information. He let others donate it willingly, desperately, just to break the tension. The key is this: control your emotional need to respond. Most people break their own leverage by filling silence with reassurance. Don't. Let it hang. Let it burn a little. Let them talk themselves into exposure. Because once you master the discipline of silence, you don't just hear words, you hear motive. You hear fear disguised as confidence. You hear desire masked as logic. And in every pause they try to cover up, you'll see the cracks in their persona. So next time you want to know someone's truth, don't ask them anything. Just stop talking. Let silence do what interrogation can't. It never lies, and it never goes unnoticed. If you want to understand someone's true nature, strip away all rewards. Give them nothing. No praise, no approval, no attention, just your presence. Neutral, silent, unreadable. Because as long as you are giving something validation, kindness, opportunity, they are reacting to the benefit, not revealing their character. But the moment you offer nothing, they show you who they really are. Machiavelli knew this was one of the coldest but most effective ways to test someone's programming. When people can't extract value, they reveal their default setting. Do they withdraw and turn cold? Then their warmth was transactional. Do they try harder to please or seek connection? That reveals insecurity, a desperate hunger for approval. But if they remain calm, respectful, and composed despite your emotional distance, then you've met someone who isn't ruled by need. That person is either deeply centered or dangerously unreadable. In a world built on performance and reciprocity, withholding is powerful. Because most people are addicted to response. They give a compliment expecting one back. They act kind not from principle but to be seen as kind. So when you interrupt that pattern, when you offer no feedback, they become confused, exposed, and emotionally reactive. You will see the cracks immediately. And this is the moment of truth. Because if they grow bitter, distant, or passive-aggressive when you're no longer feeding their ego, they were never with you. They were with what you provided. The attention, the admiration, the role you played in their self-image. The moment you stop performing that role, they collapse or retaliate. Machiavellian strategy teaches us that influence isn't built through flattery, it's built through restraint. The ability to say, I will not give you what you expect. I will not perform to make you comfortable. I will simply observe. And that observation reveals more than hours of conversation ever could. So test them, not by giving, but by subtracting. Let them feel the absence of benefit. Let them respond to the void. That's where truth lives, not in how people act when they're receiving something, but in how they act when they believe they've lost it. In silence and absence, you will find the loyalty you can trust and the manipulation you must leave behind. Some people are not speaking to you, they're performing for you. Every smile, every story, every vulnerable admission is part of a well-rehearsed script designed to control how you perceive them. They've mastered the art of premeditated honesty, learned when to cry on cue, when to joke to disarm, and when to share a carefully selected weakness, just deep enough to seem authentic but never dangerous. These individuals are not interacting, they're managing. And that's what makes them so difficult to read. But Machiavelli had a weapon for this disruption. You don't fight a performance head-on. You fracture it. You interrupt their rhythm, shatter the illusion of control, and wait. Because in that moment of cognitive dissonance, when their script no longer fits the scene, they stumble. And in the stumble, you see the real person behind the mask. How do you do this? Ask them a question that doesn't fit the narrative. Respond to a charming anecdote with silence instead of laughter. Answer their flattery with suspicion. Derail their momentum with a subtle, unexpected shift. When you break the pattern, their rehearsed tools fall apart. And what's left is something raw, defensiveness, arrogance, or maybe even a flash of contempt. That's the signal. That's the moment you're watching for, because no one can fake what they haven't prepared for. Most people only appear authentic because they've polished the act. But when the act doesn't work, when the social dance breaks, their nervous system reacts before they can catch it. Their tone tightens. Their expression freezes. They reach for control, but it's gone. That moment is more honest than 1,000 carefully crafted sentences. Machiavellian insight isn't about cynicism, it's about clarity. It's not about assuming everyone is fake, but about knowing how to spot when they are. You don't need to confront them or expose them. Just note it. Remember how quickly their charm broke when you didn't play along. That's not a person you trust blindly. That's someone whose mask has an expiration date. So when in doubt, interrupt. Not to dominate, but to see. Because the most revealing truths don't come from what someone says when they're in control, but from what slips out when they suddenly lose it. Loyalty is not proven when everything is going well. It's revealed in the silence that follows a simple no. Machiavelli understood that the most dangerous illusion is believing someone is loyal just because they're present when benefits are flowing. But presence in comfort means nothing. If you want to see someone's true allegiance, deny them something small, a favor, a compliment, a response they were expecting, and watch what breaks. You don't need to cause pain. You don't need to create conflict. All you need to do is subtly remove access, hold back a little attention, delay an answer. Say not this time to a request. Then observe. The reaction is everything. Do they remain composed? Do they respect the boundary and adapt? Or do they withdraw, criticize, or shift energy behind your back? Most people don't leave because they were denied something big. They leave because their entitlement wasn't validated. And that's the point. When you give people a little less than what they believe they deserve, you awaken their true programming. The opportunist begins to fade. The insecure start to blame. The manipulative ones begin to sow doubt in others. But the loyal, the real ones, remain stable, even in small denial, because their bond isn't rooted in reward. This test is quiet but surgical. It bypasses words and touches the raw nerve of ego. And that's where you'll find the truth, because disappointment is a mirror. It reflects whether someone values you or merely the feeling of winning next to you. When that reward is paused, their loyalty either matures or evaporates. Machiavelli didn't wait for betrayal to understand a person. He tested their tolerance for restriction early at a cost so small it was invisible to everyone except the one being denied. That's how you separate flattery from faithfulness, companionship from calculation. And here's the deepest truth. Anyone who punishes you for setting a boundary was never loyal to you, only to their access. Loyalty that can't survive a small no will never survive a real storm. So test it. Gently. Quietly. Watch not how they act when they win, but how they behave when they're denied, just enough to reveal who they've been all along. Words lie, but focus always tells the truth. In a world where people have learned to manipulate language, where compliments are calculated and confessions are curated, the real signal of someone's intention is not what they say, it's what they pay attention to. And if you want to read someone with precision, don't listen harder. Watch closer. Machiavelli knew that attention is currency. People invest it where they believe there's value, threat, or gain. So while they're talking, observe where their eyes go. Do they dart toward the powerful in the room? They're status-driven. Do they ignore those beneath them? They only respect what can benefit them. Do they glance at their phone while you speak? You're not a priority. You're background noise in their internal agenda. This form of reading is subtle, but razor sharp. Because when you track someone's attention, you decode their hierarchy of importance. You'll know exactly who they admire, who they envy, and who they dismiss without them saying a word. And that knowledge is far more powerful than any story they craft with their mouth. People can pretend to be kind, interested, humble, but attention cannot be faked. It flows naturally, pulled like a magnet toward desire, fear, or control. Machiavelli didn't waste time deciphering sweet talk. He followed the gaze, the micro-behaviors, the pauses when someone else entered the room, the shifts in tone when speaking to someone of higher rank. And that told him everything. Here's the emotional truth. When someone values you, you will feel their focus, not just in the words they say, but in the absence of distraction when they're with you. And when they don't, you'll feel that too. You'll feel it in the way their energy slips away when someone more important walks in how quickly they interrupt, in how rarely they ask a second question. This isn't paranoia, it's precision. To survive in a world of performance, you must learn to track where the light is shining, not just what the actor says on stage. Because the audience they're performing for, that's who they truly serve. So next time you wonder what someone really values, stop listening. Start watching. Because while the tongue can deceive the eyes, never forget what the mind is drawn to. If you want to know how someone truly handles power, don't wait until you're vulnerable. Simulate it. Offer them a carefully crafted fictional flaw. Something small, believable, and human. I tend to overthink things. I'm not always great at confrontation. I used to be too trusting. Say it with a light touch. Not as a confession, but as a casual truth. Then stop. Watch what they do next. This is one of Machiavelli's most brilliant strategies, because it doesn't expose you, it exposes them. You're not revealing a real wound. You're placing a mirror in their hands and seeing whether they choose to protect or exploit. Do they tuck it away respectfully, never bringing it up again? Do they store it for future manipulation? Do they smile only to later use it as leverage or mock it in subtle jabs when you're not at your strongest? You're not testing empathy. You're testing character under low-stakes power. People often say they're kind, trustworthy, or supportive, but kindness isn't defined by how people act when you're confident. It's defined by how they treat you when they believe you're weak. A person's reaction to your invented flaw tells you how they would treat you if that weakness were real. And the beauty is you risk nothing, because the flaw isn't yours. You made it up. But their response? That's authentic. That's instinctual. And that's where the truth lives. Machiavelli taught that emotional safety isn't about expressing everything to everyone. It's about knowing who can be trusted before you say anything real. That's what this tactic achieves, a way to read someone's moral boundaries without ever crossing your own. And in a world that often rewards masks, this is your way to peel them off quietly. If they respond with compassion, you've found someone capable of maturity. If they offer a similar vulnerability in return, there may be potential for real connection. But if they turn your invented weakness into a tool, believe them the first time. Because betrayal rarely begins with open conflict. It begins with silence after exposure. It begins with information quietly weaponized. So test first, not to manipulate but to protect yourself. A fake flaw today could save you from a real breakdown tomorrow. This is not deception, it's defense. It's not cruelty, it's clarity. And in clarity, you protect your mind, your boundaries, and your future. Time doesn't just reveal truth, it provokes it. When you make someone wait, you don't just delay gratification. You uncover their emotional core. Machiavelli understood that patience is a rare trait and entitlement is a dangerous one. So he used time not as a punishment, but as a tool of psychological exposure. Because how a person handles a delay tells you far more than how they handle a gift. Try it. Take longer than usual to respond to a text. Be vague when they expect precision. Postpone a favor they assumed you'd deliver instantly. These aren't power plays, they're windows into the soul. Some people will accept the wait, adapt, and move forward. Others, those driven by ego, will panic. They'll guilt trip, grow passive-aggressive, or question your loyalty. Why? Because their sense of worth wasn't rooted in connection. It was rooted in control over your availability. Mature minds don't fear time. They respect it. But those who are addicted to instant gratification see delay as rejection. And that's exactly what Machiavelli looked for, not how someone behaves when they're receiving, but how they respond when the current pauses. That response is pure, unfiltered, telling. The person who suddenly shifts tone after you take a little longer than usual, who becomes cold, sarcastic, or withdrawn, is someone whose connection to you was conditional. They were never with you, they were with the version of you that moved on their timeline. The moment you stopped performing on cue, they revealed their deeper programming: impatience, insecurity, or quiet resentment. But here's the deeper insight. Those who respect your time respect your sovereignty. They don't take your silence as an insult, and they don't demand constant proof of affection or loyalty. They hold steady. And in doing so, they reveal not only emotional intelligence, but inner strength. Machiavelli didn't just measure character in crisis. He measured it in delay, in uncertainty, in waiting. Because time disrupts illusions and demands emotional clarity. So if you want to know who someone really is, don't give them everything right away. Let time stretch. Let space widen. And watch not who leaves, but how they leave. Because sometimes the people who can't wait were only there for what they could take. People rarely show you who they are directly, but they always reveal who they want to be. And the fastest way to uncover someone's hidden ambition is to observe who they imitate. Not who they admire out loud, but who they quietly mirror in tone, style, energy, or attitude. Because imitation is never random, it's a blueprint for desire. Machiavelli understood that people are drawn to power figures they aspire to resemble. Some copy the confident, some mimic the charming, others shape themselves after the righteous or rebellious. But behind every copied gesture is a silent confession. This is who I wish I were. And once you see it, once you recognize the pattern, they're no longer a mystery. You now know what they're chasing. Watch closely. Do they mimic the powerful they seek control? Do they mirror the popular they crave attention and belonging? Do they reflect the virtuous? They want the moral high ground, even if they haven't earned it. And if they're constantly adjusting their identity to fit their surroundings, they may not know who they are at all. They're simply performing based on what they believe will be rewarded. This is why Machiavellian perception isn't about decoding someone's current behavior. It's about tracing it to the source. Because the one they emulate is the one they silently serve. And if that figure embodies vanity, manipulation, or dominance, then those traits are not far behind. Emotionally, this can be unsettling. Sometimes it means realizing a friend isn't as grounded as they appear, or that a partner is modeling themselves after someone toxic. But don't look away. Use this insight. Because once you understand someone's idol, you understand their future. Who they copy today is who they'll become tomorrow. The key is to never ask directly, just observe. Mimicry lives in body language, speech patterns, decision-making, and it often happens without awareness. But your awareness is your advantage. If you want to lead them, connect with them, or even protect yourself from them, you must know what version of themselves they're building. Because people don't always tell the truth about who they are. But they always reveal it through who they can't stop becoming. Envy never speaks first. It flickers. It doesn't shout. It hides in the microsecond before the smile and the stiffness of a compliment, in the way someone redirects a conversation the moment you mention a win. That's what Machiavelli trained his eye to catch, not applause, but hesitation. Because when you want to see someone's true emotional alignment with you, you don't wait for betrayal. You plant a seed of perceived success and watch how they react. Mention something subtle, a promotion, a compliment from someone influential, a new opportunity on the horizon. Then pause not for praise, but for the flicker. Watch the eyes, the forced grin, the sudden shift in energy. A true friend's eyes will light up. An opportunist's smile will tighten. A rival will pretend they didn't hear you at all. Machiavelli believed envy was the most dangerous emotional signal, not because it erupts immediately, but because it builds in silence. It wears a mask of politeness while feeding resentment underneath. And eventually, it always leads to sabotage. The moment you see envy, you're not just witnessing discomfort, you're seeing a threat under construction. Emotionally, this can be painful, especially when it comes from someone close. But don't ignore it, because the person who cannot celebrate your rise today is the one most likely to undermine it tomorrow. And the one who flinches at your light will eventually seek to dim it. This tactic isn't about arrogance, it's about illumination. It's not about bragging. It's about revealing. When you speak of your progress with restraint and grace and someone still recoils, you've learned everything you need to know. Because the human soul cannot fake true joy for someone they secretly resent. Envy reveals the hidden scorecard in someone's mind, the one where they've been comparing themselves to you without your knowledge. And once it appears, you can't unsee it, nor should you. That flicker of envy is your early warning. And Machiavelli knew those who flinch at your success will never protect it. So speak your truth softly, but watch the reaction sharply. Because no matter how much someone hides their envy in words, their face, their energy will always whisper the truth first. Most people are careful when they tell you what they love. Love is performative. It's curated. It's often exaggerated to fit how they want to be seen. But if you want to see someone's shadow, don't ask what they admire. Ask what they despise. Machiavelli understood this subtle truth. Hatred is rarely about the world. It's a mirror. What we reject most in others often reflects what we deny in ourselves. Try this in a quiet moment. Ask someone, what kind of people really irritate you? Or, what trait do you just can't stand? Then watch not just what they say, but how fast they say it. If the answer comes too quickly, if the emotion behind it feels too sharp, you've struck a nerve far deeper than they realize. They're not describing someone else. They're describing the part of themselves they're afraid to admit exists. The one who claims to hate arrogance may in truth battle with their own need to be superior. The one who can't stand dishonesty may be hiding a pattern of manipulation. And the person who condemns emotional weakness. Often they're terrified of their own vulnerability. Hatred in this form is not observation, it's projection. Machiavellian minds listen closely when judgment enters a room. Because judgment is always autobiographical, the volume someone uses to criticize others is often directly proportional to how much they're suppressing those same traits within. And if you can hear that, if you can decode what their hatred reveals, you suddenly have a map of their unresolved inner conflicts. This is not about shaming them. It's about understanding what they're trying to hide from others, from you, and most dangerously from themselves. Once you know what someone judges harshly, you know what they fear becoming. And when you know what someone fears becoming, you know where they are weak, where they are rigid, and where they can be broken or protected. So don't just nod when someone criticizes others. Lean in. Ask one more question, not to provoke, but to understand. Because buried inside that critique is a deeper truth, the self they're still at war with. And if you're watching closely, their hatred will become your insight, and their projection will become your power. The eyes don't lie, but more importantly, they flee when the truth gets too close. Machiavelli believed that while words are crafted and smiles rehearsed, the eyes remain the last honest messenger. And not just when they meet yours, but especially when they can't. If you want to see what someone fears, what they're ashamed of, or what truth they desperately want to avoid, watch what breaks their gaze. It's easy to maintain eye contact during small talk or surface-level charm. But introduce a pressure point, money, status, betrayal, rejection, guilt, and suddenly something shifts. The eyes twitch, glance away, drop entirely. That isn't shyness. That's a reflex of the soul trying to protect itself from being exposed. Ask a question about failure. Bring up the concept of control. Mention shame without accusing anyone. Observe. The very moment their eyes shift, the topic hit too close. And that micro-reaction tells you exactly what they'd never say out loud. This isn't interrogation, it's awareness. People often believe they're in control of their image, their story, their narrative. But their eyes tell the truth faster than their mouth can correct it. And Machiavelli didn't study what people said, he studied what they couldn't hide. Because when the eyes drop, it means something inside flinched. Emotionally, this may feel intrusive. You might feel guilty noticing. But don't. You're not weaponizing their discomfort, you're simply witnessing it. And in a world where manipulation is common, you must learn to read the unsaid, especially when it hides behind charm. The moment someone's gaze breaks, you've located a psychological doorway. Whether that door opens to trauma, insecurity, guilt, or buried ambition, only time will tell. But now you know where to look, where to ask, where to be cautious or compassionate. Machiavelli understood that eyes are not just the windows to the soul, they're the exit doors of suppressed emotions. And people will run through them the second a conversation crosses into forbidden territory. So use this, not to control but to see clearly. Because when you learn to watch the eyes, not just hear the words, you stop being manipulated. You start seeing people as they are, not as they wish to appear. And that's where your power begins, in perception so sharp it doesn't need to speak, only to observe. Most people walk through life wearing a mask, polished, practiced, perfected for years. They perform who they think they need to be, charming, when required humble, when convenient bold, when rewarded But behind the mask is someone they've forgotten how to see. And that's where your power begins. You become the mirror, not a reflection of who they are pretending to be, but a subtle, strategic reflection of who they truly are underneath. Machiavelli understood that people don't open up when questioned. They open up when confronted with themselves. And mirroring is the most disarming tactic for doing exactly that without saying anything directly. When you match someone's tone, posture, or emotional rhythm, gently, subtly, they begin to feel seen. But not seen in the way they control. Seen in the way they can't control. And in that feeling, their defenses crack. If someone is confident, mirror their certainty. Watch if they become louder, as if needing to prove they're still in control. If they're insecure, mirror their hesitancy. Do they suddenly shift into superiority, mocking or correcting you to escape discomfort? The reaction is never random. It's rooted in the performance they've built to survive. This tactic isn't about manipulation. It's about revelation. You are not inserting anything false. You're simply becoming their energetic echo. And in that reflection, you'll see exactly what they're afraid of being exposed, their need for validation, their hunger for power, their fragility beneath the arrogance. Emotionally, it can be unsettling. You'll watch people transform in real time. The charming become sharp. The gentle become cold. The confident become defensive. Not because you attacked them, but because your presence disrupted their control script. Machiavelli never chased confessions. He created conditions for people to confess to themselves. That's what mirroring does. You don't push, you reflect. And their reaction tells you if they were being real or rehearsed. So next time you want to see someone clearly, stop trying to read them. Instead, become them just enough. Subtle posture, echoed energy, a quiet match of tone. Then watch. Because what someone does when they see their own reflection tells you more than any story they've ever told. And once you've seen it, you'll never be fooled by the mask again. Everyone expects judgment. Whether they admit it or not, most people walk into conversations already bracing themselves for it, defensive, filtered, prepared to justify. That's why most people never tell you the truth, not because they're dishonest, but because they're armored. And Machiavelli knew this well. He didn't confront the armor, he dissolved it. With respect, with admiration, with psychological safety. The tactic is simple, but deadly precise. Offer a compliment first. Not flattery, a credible validation. You clearly think through things. You seem incredibly self-assured. You have a sharp way of observing people. What happens next is subtle but powerful. They exhale. Their guard lowers. Their pride swells. And just as they feel seen, respected, safe, you deliver the question that pierces through the surface. But not any question. A surgical one. The kind that bypasses ego and touches the raw layer beneath. You seem confident. When did you first learn to fake that you're good at reading people? How do you know when someone's reading you? You think clearly. What fear drives your clarity? These questions don't accuse. They don't attack. They awaken. Because they come from a place of earned permission, a space where someone believes they're admired. And in that vulnerable moment, they reveal far more than they would under pressure. Machiavelli wasn't interested in interrogation. He knew the human mind resists force but opens for flattery. Not the empty kind, but the kind that affirms someone's identity, then questions the foundation of it. That's where real truth lives, not in what people say to defend themselves, but in what they say when they feel safe enough to stop defending. This tactic is not manipulation. It's precision. It's learning how to listen beneath the performance, how to ask without provoking resistance. When someone believes you're on their side, they'll walk straight into confession, not realizing they handed you their blueprint. So respect first, observe second, ask last. That sequence is everything. Because once someone feels admired, they'll say what they've never told anyone, not because you demanded it, but because you made them feel like they wanted to. And in that moment, you're not just reading them. You're holding the truth in your hands without ever letting them know you were looking for it. In a world filled with performance, perception is power. And if there's one lesson Machiavelli left us, it's this. The truth about people isn't in what they say, it's in how they react when the script breaks. Most people are driven by insecurity, validation, or hidden ambition. And if you know where to look, If you know how to stay silent, how to test, how to observe, you'll see everything they're trying to hide. This isn't about manipulation. It's about protection. It's about building a mind that doesn't just listen, but decodes. A presence that doesn't chase attention, but watches with precision. Because when you stop over-explaining, stop giving too much too soon, and start reading the world through action instead of words, you become the one who cannot be fooled. Apply these tactics in your daily life. Notice who they become when they get nothing from you. Watch what breaks their eye contact. Listen to what they hate. It's a mirror of who they are. Use silence not to punish, but to reveal. And above all, remember, your strength doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being able to see clearly without illusion, without fear. If this opened your eyes, help someone else sharpen their mind too. Hit that subscribe button, tap. Like and share this video with someone who's ready to stop being played and start reading the game like a strategist.